Hello everyone, welcome to Discography Tier List, where we take a band's discography and break it down, deciding which album fits from gold to trash for all the studio releases for a band chosen by my patrons. And this time, they chose none other than Avenged Sevenfold, a band I've seen several times live, I've shot them live, I've gotten their albums the day they come out before the past. A band that means a lot to a lot of people in different ways. I am fully aware that Avenged Sevenfold is very loved and very hated. Starting glorified right out of high school, going with Sounding the Seventh Trumpet. That's a big deal to go right out of the gate signing your own metal album in the early 2000s. But in 2001, Sounding the Seventh Trumpet literally did just that. M Shadows, Rev, they all came at young ages as teenagers when they were signed to produce something like that. That deserves some credit. I don't think there's a lot of people that realize how young Avenged Sevenfold were when they started out with this album. In my opinion, gets a lot of flack. But you have to keep in mind, this was 2001, and the thing is, it's not that bad. It's not great, it's not their best, and it's the best way to say this, it is very rough around the edges. You could tell it's a bit rough in the mix, in the production, the writing, all of that. But you can see the pieces there that are so strong. You can tell what this band would become. They just had to harness it and rein it all in and focus it a little better. With Sounding the Seventh Trumpet, they had some good stuff. Warmness of the Soul, I think, is the one that stood out. If I'm correct, that was the actual single that really helped push the album. The label was really pushing back in the early 2000s. Again, this was pre-Synyster Gates, Avenged Sevenfold 2. Zacky V was really kind of laying down the framework for him as a guitarist. And he showed himself too. He really proved he knows what he's doing. And he still is a great guitarist. See, there is stuff here. You can see the pieces that could be used later. You could see that there was potential in something like this. Poll is over. For me, I say aluminum. It's not trash, but it's not any higher than that. It's just because it is such a raw mess that it doesn't add too much. So let's see what you guys said. Most of you agreed with me. Aluminum, 55%, followed by bronze, then trash. So I'm very happy with that. And again, that is not in a condescending, mean way. This is a bunch of teenagers who have a lot to prove, but don't have a lot of direction yet. This is a raw Avenged Sevenfold feel where they're not as focused. This is not trash, though. That is very unfair to say. I think aluminum is very fitting for Sounding the Seventh Trumpet, for sure. Just about 2 years later, they released their second album, and they have one world of a phenomenal guitarist signed up at Synyster Gates. That was a huge step up. You could tell his influence in that album, Waking the Fallen in 2003, was something so much needed for them to evolve and get their own unique style, and also help carry things. Waking the Fallen was also when they realized we could do more than just riffs and solos and crazy drumming from Rev, you know? We could do so much more than that. I still feel that this album right now, Waking the Fallen, is a bit underrated for Avenged Sevenfold. It gets lost in the shuffle. It's not bad. It's really not. There's a lot of good stuff here. I mean, Unholy Confessions was the one that really drew me into this album way back in the day. This is the album I went back to listen to because City of Evil was already out at the time. But Waking the Fallen has stuff worth listening to. The production and mixing quality still has that raw instrument appeal. You could tell it's not layered to death with filters and Pro Tool effects and things like that. You could tell this is definitely a showcase of their talent and ability. Rev just evolved so much in 2 years, and he was already a great drummer at that time. That's an album, a second album, that's worthy of representing your band years and years later. Because that was 2003. 19 years ago. Again, this is not my favorite album from Avenged Sevenfold, but it's high up there because for what it does and how impressive it is. I would say not from beginning to end, all the songs are not as crystal clear, memorable as some of the other tracks that have a full playthrough. That's what we're going to get to soon enough. I know a lot of people love gold. I said silver for this one. The reason I said silver, high silver, is because as big of a jump this was, as good as the playing is, it's not the peak of their careers yet. And it's not the most memorable thing from beginning to end. It's enjoyable. There's so much to get lost into. I would say they would do better when you compare it to the rest of the albums. That's it. And it looks like most of you agree with me. Silver by a landslide. 58% people said silver, followed by bronze 23% and gold 15%. That's pretty fair. And I get why people say bronze and gold too. No one said trash, which is also really nice as well. As we pop this over here, Waking the Fallen goes up to silver, and I think that's a good place for it. Moving on, 2 years later, we get City of Evil. And this went from Waking the Fallen turning heads to City of Evil grabbing your head and forcing your attention. City of Evil was the first album I heard from Avenged Sevenfold back in the day. Incomplete. I've heard Avenged Sevenfold songs before. City of Evil was the first full album I heard back in the day from Avenged Sevenfold. That was the one that blew me away. When I first heard Beast and the Harlot early into it, when I first heard Bat Country and heard other people talking about Bat Country and it getting radio play, that was mind-blowing to me at a time where music like this was not the popular thing. In my opinion, I have to say this is probably them at their peak along with another album coming up. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Rev was unchained on this one. Synyster Gates and Zacky V all knowing what they're doing and how to play. They were in sync so much on this album that I think people don't give enough credit. Seize the Day was a song that even my dad got into, and he couldn't care less about Avenged Sevenfold. He didn't know who they were. Even he was kind of rocking out to this in his Jeep when I went home for Christmas that year. And I'm glad, Grady, you brought that up. I think City of Evil also was more proof that as a metal band that's doing some wild, intense stuff at times, you can bring in a string section. You can bring in horns. You can totally bring in stuff like that and make it work and apply to a heavy album in a strong, impactful way. There's just so much that City of Evil has going for it. M. Shadows found his groove in this album, in my opinion. You could hear in his voice that everything is more smooth. You could tell his technique was changed a little bit. Everything was working well for that. Even with a lot of longer songs, none of them really felt long. No, they move. That's the thing, Zombie. The songs move. Things happen in them. The rhythms change, the speeds and elevations and volume change. There are so many long-winded tracks in metal that things just don't progress. It's just taking up space on a track. And I think Avenged Sevenfold on something like City of Evil proved how to use your time and how to build momentum while using that time. And taking their time to do so, but not feeling like it's just you're sitting there waiting for something to happen. This is one of Avenged Sevenfold's 2 best albums. It's my personal favorite, but I get why someone else might say. And most of you agree with me, even more so than last time. Gold, 68%, silver, 24%, bronze, 8%. Nobody said aluminum or trash. That's kind of awesome. Gold, 68%. I said gold when I wrote it down. City of Evil easily goes top tier. I don't think there's any argument for that. 2 years after City of Evil, the self-titled came out. And this is how Avenged Sevenfold satisfied their core fan base while making themselves more accessible to newer metal fans and people that are more on the mainstream side. And that's not to say this is a mainstream album. It's not. Avenged Sevenfold did not put the self-titled album. It's not the most mainstream thing they've done, not by a long shot. But this was an album that proved you can appeal to those fans that have been with you since Sounding the Seventh Trumpet and Waking the Fallen, while getting new fans and making things appeal to your stuff. Self-titled has a lot going for it that a lot of people do not respect enough. People don't realize how much happens in self-titled as well. Self-titled get nearly as much praise? No, because it came after City of Evil. And I think that's the one thing that people did not give enough credit to. People wanted City of Evil Part 2, or they wanted something totally different, you know, and just when you have to live up to City of Evil and you release your self-titled, I get why people were not blown away. I think it's great, though. There's so much to get lost in for the Avenged Sevenfold self-titled album. There is more unhinged playing from Synyster Gates on this. There is more consistent drumming across the board from Rev on this. Again, M. Shadows was still riding that groove from City of Evil. And I really think that too. You could tell he had found what he needed to make his niche in singing and performing and things like that. There's so much that I love about the self-titled. When I look back at the self-titled too, when I remember hearing Scream and losing my mind as a single, and that's what caused me to go out and get that album too. Because I didn't get this one self-titled the day it came out, you know? I just feel like there's so much more worth talking about on the self-titled that people did not give enough attention to. A bit unfairly, because again, look what it followed. That's it though. The staples are there. The deep cuts are there. The big songs and the big moments from Avenged Sevenfold at the time were still there. It's close. It's not my favorite, but it's the lightest gold. It's in that bridge between gold and silver, and I edge towards gold. Because from beginning to end, it still feels like a complete album that offers so much and proves they still have the same talent. It just doesn't match as much as City of Evil, but that does not limit its offering of what we have, like just all the quality and content in the songs. So let's see the poll. Most of you agree with me. This one's a little bit closer, but most of you did agree with me. 54% said gold, followed by silver at 38% and bronze at 8%. So even though I put City of Evil above self-titled, I still say self-titled is in the gold tier. That era from 2005 to 2007, like for those albums and around that time, a little bit after, that was Avenged Sevenfold unmatched. And that's why I think it still works so well. So self-titled, into gold. Glad so many people agree with me on that. Jump to 2010. And this is rough because this is the first album without Rev. Boy, oh boy, is that a loss. And that's not just a, oh man, we got to find a new drummer. That's a, oh man, a big part of our identity as a band is gone. I do feel that as much as they could have done without Rev, Avenged Sevenfold had such a empty spot to fill in sound and technique and a constant presence on every Avenged Sevenfold song. But they tried their best. And as they went on, we went to Nightmare, 2010. In my opinion, this was the album and the songs that made Avenged Sevenfold go mainstream. This is not with their intention. Maybe it wasn't their intention at all. But this was the album that got the mainstream attention, all because of that title track. Nightmare is a long metal song. I know a lot of the metal elitists will say, it's not metal. Guys, this is the song that got everybody's attention. It was played on every station almost. Like even top 40 stations were towing and playing cut edits of Nightmare. Nightmare has a lot of emotional, big, bombastic, ballad-esque in the metal phrase type of songs. And you could tell M Shadows, everyone's just pouring their heart out on this, trying to push forward. It's definitely a big statement from the band trying to move on. At the same time, there's a lot of music on here, and this was the first album in a while after that for Nightmare where I felt some of these songs aren't hitting as well. There is some filler, a little bit of fluff in there too, that just kind of extends and drags on, especially in the second half. That's just me though. You have Welcome to the Family, which is fine. That was a big single for them too following Nightmare. So Far Away, I thought worked. That was the big emotional statement too. This album has high points. Great high points. Someone just said it's a very cathartic album. It absolutely is. Not everything on there works beautifully. It's hard to really rip something like this apart considering you know where they were coming from at the time after such a loss and trying to push forward and trying to do something a little different. There's a lot of stuff that I don't really care for that does kind of drone on, but there's some strong high points. I don't know why I hissed my S's like that. Sorry. I enjoy it, but at the same time, I don't love it. At least not the whole thing. Nothing is awful. There's not anything on Nightmare that makes me rip off the headphones. There's really not. Arguably their most successful album, sales-wise, numbers-wise. Correct me if I'm wrong about that also, but if I'm correct, that is. I said bronze on this one, a high bronze. I think it's there. I think there are good moments on it. There's just a lot that lags a little bit. A lot of you said silver. That is interesting. 52% said silver. That is interesting. I was not expecting that. Gold at 40%. Okay. A lot of people really have a high thing for gold, Nightmare as well. Bronze, 8%. No one said aluminum or trash again, which I'm happy about. This is not a trash album. It's not even an aluminum album. So many people said silver. That was the most at 52%. Gold was at 40%. I am outmatched a little bit. If I have to be outmatched a little bit, okay, I'll take the silver. I said bronze on my list. I'll put silver for this one. You guys talk me into this one. Da-da-da-da. It's a light silver from Misfit. Yeah, I get that too. Okay, moving on to the most arguably controversial album from Avenged Sevenfold, 2013's Hail to the King. Preluded by its title track, with M Shadows giving that throat-ruining performance. Hey, and M Shadows is great. I remember when it came out. I remember liking it. A week went by. I remember asking, why haven't I gone back to it? 2 weeks went by. I remember going back, why aren't I listening to Shepherd of Fire or Hail to the King? Why can't I remember what else is on the album? And it was like 2 weeks after the album came out. I remember listening to it, wondering, what did I like about this so much? It's not the worst thing ever. My ears are not bleeding. But man, oh man. As I started listening to it more and more, or trying to at least, I just could not pay attention to the entire back half of that album. And that's kind of a bummer. A lot of people called this album, Hail to the King, Avenged Sevenfold's Black Album for the Metallica comparisons. The thing is, though, Metallica's Black Album is their best-selling album. It has memorable songs that everyone non-metal fans know. When you go outside of Avenged Sevenfold fans and metal fans, they're not going to know Hail to the King that much. It felt that they were trying for that rock radio vibe and trying to get some more attention and appeal from a bigger audience with Hail to the King, the album. Someone just said, This Means War is a sad but true ripoff. Yikes. I'd much rather see Avenged Sevenfold ripoff Metallica than Kid Rock. Yes. Hail to the King, that big hook in the chorus of the song, Shepherd of Fire. They barely had a lot of hidden gems on the album, and that's what also kind of ruined it for me. Even like the guitar work, talking about Synyster Gates and Zack V, I mean, it just wasn't there. It just wasn't as exciting, as gripping. Not to say it wasn't excellently played for what they were doing. It was fine, but there was just so many missed opportunities. There was so much dead space on Hail to the King. Again, I stand by. It's so hard to get through with your attention paid to it. You can't get lost in anything in there. You just kind of drone on and like it loses your attention very quickly. A lot of you said bronze. I'm very surprised by that. Followed by aluminum, 23%, gold, 8%, silver, 8%, trash, 4%. Someone even said trash on this one. Disagree with trash completely. Bronze, I'm surprised with. Google, flip a coin. Thank you for the suggestion, by the way. All right. Flipping. Oh, I have to flip again. Okay. Heads, bronze. Tails, aluminum. That's how we're doing it. Womp. Tails. So, aluminum, barely. It's a really light bronze, really heavy aluminum. I get that too. So, very fair. Moving on. Our final album, our final studio release, that was a surprise in 2016 that a lot of people did not expect, including me. If you guys have to remember back in the day, no one expected this to happen. We got The Stage. The Stage was a big shock because they did try to do something different. They tried to be a little more progressive, a little more experimental with what they were trying to make. Longer tracks, longer, bigger, moving tracks. They really brought in more of an actual orchestra and a bigger orchestra as well. I remember seeing the Stage music video for the first time. It's like, holy crap, they're really going in with something. The guitar work was back. That was the first thing I noticed after Hail to the King. I noticed in The Stage, I was getting into the rhythm more from the rhythm guitar and just from overall in general. Both Zack and Synyster Gates were definitely adding more than they did in Hail to the King. That was the first thing. Goddamn and The Stage were the two songs that stood out to me. Listening to those and going, wow, this is way more of an engaging listen and experience. Does it drag on in a couple moments? Yes, it does. Just by the nature of what it was trying to be this big, gargantuan, epic album. And I'm not against that either. They tried to make something a little more in-depth and not, I don't want to say like proggy, but still, they tried to do something like that. For all the complaints and arguments people had about Hail to the King, this was definitely not Hail to the King by any stretch of the imagination. And again, there are dry points on this album just by the nature of what it is. You do lose your attention and focus after so much. Over 70 minutes. But it is a big step up over what it was for Hail to the King, and that's why I enjoyed it. Higher is one of my favorites, mine too. Got Back, I do think this album is great. See, I think The Stage was a step in the right direction. They kind of steered the ship in a better direction and corrected their sailing. And I think that's what that really helped them. 50% silver. That's what I said too. You guys matched almost all of my predictions and where I would rank them except for one. So you know what? I am fine with silver. Over half of everyone said silver. There's some bronze and gold right before it clicked away. I'm fine with that. You know why? Because one, huge improvement from Hail to the King. Two, this was a massive amount of effort and an attempt to make something different. So this is like the lightest silver. And by the way, how I have them ranked in order on the list is not just an order of when they came out, but how I would rank them personally as well. I put Waking the Fallen over Nightmare, all these over the Stage and stuff. Well, maybe I would put the Stage over Nightmare, but still, that's just me. There. There's so much to appreciate about Avenged Sevenfold, and when I have on the side new A7X Win, supposedly it's this year. According to Synyster Gates and M Shadows, the album is 90% done. The reason why it's taken a little bit long to finish the final parts, they're recording a massive orchestra for string sections and stuff for some of the songs. They're putting in the work. This album was delayed and delayed again. All the terrible things that have happened to Avenged Sevenfold the years, not just losing Rev, but M Shadows blowing out his voice twice, to the point where he had to go on months of vocal rest. Pandemic not allowing him to do certain things. From what Fractured Eclipse, hopefully it's this year, the band has gone on record saying they're hoping to have it in the first half of this year. Will that happen? I don't know. But I can see Avenged Sevenfold coming out with a new album in 2022. That being said, where would you guys on YouTube put all the albums in your ranking? Gold, silver, bronze, aluminum, trash. Sevenfold releases. Come back to this video also and let me know what you guys think of the upcoming album whenever that drops. Let me know your thoughts on Avenged Sevenfold. I know people love to hate him. I know people love him in general. I know some people that just hate him. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments, and let me know what bands you would like to see on a future discography tier list. Thank you for watching.